Chapter 4194. Chin Mo lit a cigarette and looked at Rongyu. Is it because of her fame? He smiled. With her current status, you're really trying to climb up the social ladder. Aren't you afraid of being called a gigolo? Rongyu was unmoved. That's not important. For someone who has died once, the most important thing is to be able to be with the person he likes. And I missed her for many years. Missed her? Chin Mo smiled and looked at Rongyu mockingly. Can you go back? Before you two missed each other, she married me and had a child with me. She liked me. But you still got a divorce. Rongyu looked down. President Qin, He-Huan isn't a willful girl. Maybe she was willful once because she married you. But to the point where she wanted a divorce, it's because you didn't cherish her. Chin Mo stared at Rongyu for a few seconds. Then, he got into his car and sped away. On the way back, there was a small accident. He injured his hand, but it wasn't a big deal. It was just that he shouldn't drive for a month. The media magnified the incident and made it sound so serious that Chin Mo couldn't stay in the hospital anymore and had to be discharged. Qin Chen put him in a fixed position and leaned against his bed. The hospital is still peaceful. Mom and Dad will miss you for a long time when you go back. Otherwise, you'll be living alone in the apartment. There's no one who can take care of you. Chin Mo didn't say anything. He just stayed silent. Qin Chen asked again, how did you hit the wall? Brother, you didn't drink that night. I saw Rongyu. He was at her place. Chin Mo wanted to smoke, but the moment he took out the cigarette box, Qin Chen took it away and threw it away. Why are you still smoking at this time? Chin Mo stared at her. I don't even have a wife now. Can't I smoke? That's what you pretended not to have. Qin Chen couldn't help but say, of all the things you could have done something to get Rong-Huan out of B City. Why did you torture He-Huan? Isn't it just a meeting between old friends to have a cup of coffee and a few words? Furthermore, it's a business relationship. Do you think it's reasonable for you to abuse He-Huan? Furthermore, you're the one who wanted to divorce her. Not to mention meeting her, even if they had sex, you wouldn't be able to say anything about it. You said in front of Uncle Kaim that you don't regret it. Why did you hit the wall after seeing such a small scene? If they get married in the future, I think you might go crazy. No. Chin Mo said in a low voice, let's all start again. Chin Chin, maybe He-Huan and I don't have the same personality. After so many years, we still can't get along. Qin Chen didn't say anything else. As long as he didn't regret it, it was fine. She helped him get discharged, but Chin Mo insisted on staying in his own apartment. Qin Chen mentioned something. When I went back that day, Lan Yu took the initiative to mention it to me. He said that Yi-Huan is now in the nursery and can go to school with our Lan Yu. We have 2 children at home, and 1 more won't make a difference. Chin Mo patted her. Let's talk about it later. I want to take care of her myself after I'm done with this. Qin Chen couldn't insist. After all, children still had to follow their parents. She asked in a low voice, will you find a stepmother for Yi-Huan? Chin Mo glanced at her and shook his head. No, I won't. No, at least not for the time being. Qin Chen understood what he meant, so he advised, even if you have a girlfriend, don't bring her home. Unless it's a woman that you've decided to spend the rest of your life with, it's not good for Yi-Huan's growth. Chapter 4195. Qin Mo stared at her. Qin Chen couldn't help begging, I know you know what to do. In the end, she, the most famous doctor, drove Qin Mo back to the apartment. Fortunately, there was an auntie in the apartment. Although it wasn't very convenient, there was still someone to take care of him. Qin Chen had something to do in the hospital, so he left first. Qin Mo went back to the bedroom alone. He wanted to take a shower, but then he remembered that it was inconvenient for his hands, so he gave up. However, when he opened the closet, he found that there were a lot of He Huan's clothes. She had lived for a long time recently, so she bought a lot of clothes. Qin Mo looked at it for a long time and touched it with his fingers. He wanted to ask her to take it away, but after thinking about it, he didn't make the call. He went back to the master bedroom, lay down and closed his eyes. He thought about what he did to He Huan that night. He clenched his fingers, and it hurt. He Huan must have been in pain that night. She cried and begged him, but he didn't let her go. He had never been so rough to a woman. In addition to being rude about X, he also strangled her, bit her, and even slapped her. With He Huan's pride, she should have asked for a divorce that night, but she didn't. He thought that she might really love He Huan, so she could endure it. He asked himself again if he did it on purpose, as if he wanted to know where her bottom line was. It was too painful for him to suffer in this relationship alone, so he lost control. Qin Mo didn't fall asleep, so he got out of bed and walked out. The auntie was a little surprised to see him. "Sir, you're going out." Qin Mo said calmly, "I'm going to the company, and I'll come back tonight." The auntie nodded, but she was still worried. "Before Miss Qin left, she told me that you can't touch water or drive." "I'll ask the driver to take me," Qin Mo said calmly, and opened the door to go out. He went to the company, and there was no urgent matter to deal with. He just sat there and took out 2 green books from the drawer. He told Qin Chen to let go of each other, so he wanted to let her go. Even if she was really with Rongyu, he let her be. Letting her go was letting himself go. It was his way of making up for what he did to her that night. Although his heart felt like it was being pricked by needles, he still dialed He Huan's number. "The certificate is ready. Come to the company to get it." He Huan said that he understood. He waited there for about 3 hours before He Huan came. She was dressed like she was working and seemed to be in a hurry. She came over and looked at the bandage on Qin Mo's hand. "What happened?" "There are some fractures in my hand, but it's not a big problem." Then, he took out a green book from the drawer. "This is yours. Keep it well. I'll need this for some things in the future." He Huan quietly took it. After all, it was a divorce. Even if she hated him, she couldn't pretend to be happy. Moreover, she used to like him. However, none of them had a good ending. Qin Mo said calmly, "I only have one request. Before Yi Huan turns 12, don't let her know that we're divorced, and don't let her know that you have another man outside. As for marriage, it's up to you. As long as you're happy." This was what he had promised. Letting go would be more thorough. He Huan knew that he had misunderstood her and Rongyu. He thought that she had chosen Rongyu. She didn't intend to explain and only smiled faintly. And in Qin Mo's heart, it was a silent agreement. He lowered his eyes. "The lawyer will hand over the other procedures to you. If you want to see Yi Huan, call me." Chapter 4196. He Huan held the divorce certificate in her hand and agreed. Then, there was really nothing left to say. She stood at the door and said softly, "Qin Mo, I'm leaving." Qin Mo nodded, but his gaze never left her. He Huan still left. The door closed. Qin Mo instinctively wanted to smash something, but he held back. Raising his head slightly, he thought to himself, He Huan didn't seem reluctant to leave, nor did she seem to hate him. It seemed like he was right to say that they were going to separate and divorce. At least she was happy and would be happy in the future. He felt that it was over, but his eyes were still warm. Something slid down from the corner of his eye. He reached out to touch it and realized it was his own tears. He smiled bitterly. He had liked her for almost 20 years. A few tears were nothing. Chinemo didn't rest. He threw himself into work and called Secretary He. Secretary He was frightened. He knew his boss was in a bad mood, but when he came in, he realized his boss was calm. President Chin. Secretary He was slightly relieved. Chinemo sat down and turned on his laptop. The screensaver was He Huan's photo. He was stunned for a moment, then changed it and looked up. How are the preparations for Kong Chiao's farewell party? For an artist of Kong Chiao's caliber, it naturally had to be done beautifully. Otherwise, it would be a loss for both parties. Chinemo had always been magnanimous. Besides, Kong Chiao had contributed greatly to King, so he had to be gracious. Secretary He replied quickly, it will be held the night after tomorrow. The hotel is at the Grand Hyatt, which is also President Chin's relative's place. There's a 20% discount. Also, the media and other important figures have been invited. On one hand, it's to build momentum for Kong Chiao. On the other hand, it's to use Kong Chiao's resources to bring traffic to King Entertainment. Nowadays, newcomers still need the help of the old, right? Chinemo stared at the computer and said calmly, you did well. Who did you invite? He changed the screen and realized that there were many photos of He Huan on his computer. He hadn't specially uploaded anything, so why were there dozens of them? He deleted them one by one as he listened to Secretary He's report. Finally, there was only one photo left. That was their wedding photo. Chinemo looked at it silently for a long time. In the end, he kept the last one and did not delete it. Just then, Secretary He mentioned, in terms of directing, we've invited. Chinemo interrupted her. Director He. Yes, it's Director He, but... Secretary He's voice trailed off. Because Kong Chiao will be working with Director He soon, so I thought. Chinmo's eyes darkened. He smiled faintly. You know quite a lot. His attitude made Secretary He a little uncertain, so he froze there and didn't continue. Chinemo raised his hand. Let's do as you say. Make it grand. Don't let others think that King Entertainment can't do without Kong Chiao. We have to give it our best wishes. Secretary He closed the document and breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled and asked, will President Chin be there? Chinemo said indifferently, go. Consider it a token of my sincerity. He had even forsaken He Huan. Why couldn't he give this little bit of a gift? He thought bitterly in his heart and smiled uncontrollably. On the other side, Kong Chiao received a call from Secretary He. He was very grateful to Secretary He. Secretary He was an excellent person and had always treated Kong Chiao well, especially in front of President Chin. Kong Chiao knew this very well. Chapter 4197. He hung up and looked at Su Mo. Come to the dinner party with me the day after tomorrow. Su Mo came over from Mr. Kang's room next door. She took a sip of fruit tea and looked at him. Chin Mo is quite generous. He's too lazy to scheme when he's in a bad mood. It's not easy to leave King Entertainment. He's just being angry with Director He. Kong Chiao smiled. Just like us before. He was now married and very satisfied. The sun was shining brightly, so he pulled Su Mo into his arms and kissed her. I said they would still be together. Su Mo rolled her eyes. It's best if they don't. Why do you guys get to keep me if you want me and throw me away if you don't? Although she said it harshly, her voice was sweet when they were in a good relationship. Kong Chiao leaned over to kiss her lips and said meaningfully, then feel it. Do I want you or don't want you now? Su Mo was stunned. She reached out and hit his shoulder. You're so bad. Do it again. He coaxed her and pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head and kissed her. Afraid that she would struggle, he held her body in place with his arms. After kissing her for a while, he carried her into the master bedroom and pressed down on her with his fingers tightly intertwined. Su Mo scratched his back. Her breathing was a little erratic. Kong Chiao, I can't get pregnant now. I've asked the doctor, and he says there's no problem. He licked and kissed the corner of her mouth, answering gently, and also gently to her. In the end, they did it twice. After that, Kong Chiao cleaned her body and placed his hand on her stomach, thinking that there might already be his flesh and blood here. He knew that Su Mo was prone to pregnancy these few days, so he couldn't help but ask a few more times. He went downstairs and made some food. After waking her up, he fed her some. Su Mo fell asleep after eating. He finished his work and went downstairs to eat something while reading a magazine. Just then, the auntie came over and said that someone was looking for them. Kong Chiao thought it was someone from the company or He Huan, so he wanted to invite them in. He thought for a moment and asked who it was. The auntie hesitated. It's the old Miss Huan. Kong Chiao frowned. Ruan Yun. He put down the magazine and went to see Ruan Yun. He received her in the living room. Ruan Yun wasn't in a good state. She sat on the sofa and drank water, her hands shaking. After a while, she put down the cup and stared at Kong Chiao. Why? Compared to her, Kong Chiao was much calmer. Why what? You and Su Mo got married, right? Ruan Yun said in one breath, her voice. Kong Chiao, she's trying to harm you. She's a spy from Starlight and she wants to destroy you. She wants you to lose everything. Have you forgotten how you treated her in the past? How can she like you? She wants to destroy you, Ruan Yun said in one breath, her voice was rather agitated. Up mo, xing up. Xing mo, xing up. Star s xing mo, s xing, she's crazy. That's why she's doing this. Watch her. She'll return to Star's entertainment when you lose everything. It's all Yimu Bai and Wen Yuan's conspiracy. Kong Chiao, you know that Yimu Bai has always hated you. Ruan Yun was getting more and more ridiculous. Chapter 4198. Kong Chiao closed his eyes. Ruan Yun, we've worked together before. That's why I'm willing to tell you that there isn't so much hatred in this world. Only I can decide my career, and Su Mo has never asked. Now, is that okay? He said calmly, live a good life in the future. In this entertainment circle, we enjoy the feeling of being watched by others, but Ruan Yun, that's not everything in life. Whether I'm a violinist or an actor in the future, it's just a profession. It has nothing to do with my life. At most, it's a better quality of life. I'm just bringing a better life to my family, that's all. Only now did he understand why his mother liked Wen Yuan so much. She said that Wen Yuan played the piano very well. It was because Wen Yuan didn't care about fame and fortune. She only liked music, and he, Kong Chiao, had always played the piano for fame and fortune. He had long lost his spirituality, but he had never been willing to admit it. After Kong Chiao finished speaking, Ruan Yun looked as if she had been shocked. She stared at him in disbelief. After a long time, Ruan Yun left. In the afternoon, Weibo became a trending topic, and it was filled with negative comments about Su Mo. People said that Su Mo was actually the protagonist of the Car Z incident, not a certain model, and that the model was just a shield, and that Su Mo and Kong Chiao had a business relationship back then, and they still maintained it now. Kong Chiao sat in the living room and browsed Weibo. He knew that it was Ruan Yun who did it. She was really hopeless. He knew that Ruan Yun thought that he didn't dare to announce that he was married for fear of losing fans. Kong Chiao smiled. He didn't wear makeup, so why should he be afraid of losing fans? He went upstairs and read a magazine in the living room of the master bedroom while waiting for Su Mo to wake up. He didn't care about what was written on the trending topic. Rumors were rumors, and they couldn't prove anything. The most important thing to him right now was his mother's health, Su Mo's, and their child. He couldn't wait to have a child with Su Mo. Maybe it would be a naughty boy, or maybe it would be a flat princess like Su Mo. It didn't matter. However, as long as the child looked like him, it wouldn't be much different. Mr. Kong thought narcissistically. Just thinking about it made him feel very happy. When Su Mo woke up, he went over. You've slept for 4 or 5 hours. You're really a pig, aren't you? Su Mo swatted his hand away and harumphed, how can you be pregnant when you've just finished? She put one hand behind her head and grabbed him with the other to prevent him from taking advantage of her. In a soft voice, she said, have you seen Mother? It should be dinner soon. Concho said somewhat absent-mindedly, I said I won't go tonight, we'll eat here. Look at you, you're not filial at all. Su Mo glanced at him, then said softly, you've already done it during the day. Isn't it good to accompany Mama at night? Kong Chiao smiled and reached out to pinch her cheeks, my heart aches for you, Mrs. Kong. Aren't your legs sore? Or do you want me to carry you to the next room for dinner and let my mom see that we did it in the afternoon and made your legs soft? Su Mo glared at him. Kong Chiao smiled, all right, what do you want to eat tonight? He was very gentle, just like any considerate husband. Su Mo admitted that she enjoyed it very much. She counted on her fingers and said a few things. Kong Chiao laughed. What's so difficult about that? Chapter 4199. She counted on her fingers and said a few things. Kong Chiao laughed, what's so difficult about that? He went downstairs and told them to go upstairs to accompany her. But when he went upstairs, he found that Su Mo was playing with her phone with a subtle expression. He coughed lightly and walked in, did you see it? Su Mo's eyes were still on the phone as she replied, it's been so long, but Ruan Yun still has pictures of our car Z. I didn't take a closer look last time, and now I'm in luck. Kong Chiao was annoyed and amused at the same time. He went over and pinched her nose, is that the point? Su Mo didn't care, we're married, what's the big deal? By the way, do you still have intimate pictures with her? I'm not that perverted, Kong Chiao said unhappily. Su Mo, don't mention this in the future. Su Mo's reaction was to glare at him, you're the only one who can do it, but I can't talk about it. She held the phone and asked casually, by the way, how is her figure? Is her technique good? Kong Chiao finally couldn't take it anymore. He went over to hold her down and then bit her lips as a punishment. Mrs. Kong, I think we need to end this topic. She looked surprised, these are your dark history. Shouldn't you settle it? He patted her face, Mrs. Kong, we're married, it's too late to settle it now. It's not late, it's never too late. Su Mo also patted him, your money is in my hands now. Kong Chiao laughed and kissed her. As for the next time, there was no such thing. Her body was not the same as before, he also knew how to control himself. Because he loved someone, he was willing to restrain his desires for the other party, and when he endured for a long time, the sudden sense of satisfaction was very strong, which Kong Chiao liked very much. Kong Chiao turned over and lay flat with her, then whispered, Ruan Yun is like this because she's not reconciled, let her be, she's always been kind to me. Su Mo held his big hand and played with it. After a while she said, Kong Qiao, you've changed. He looked at her sideways, his face full of interest. Su Mo put her head on his shoulder and rubbed it, then said slowly, you weren't so kind and tolerant before. Really? Su Mo, I don't want to offend anyone. In the end, all of you got hurt. Ruan Yun doesn't need to deal with her. The most she can do is stir up her fans. In reality, it's different from before. Whether an idol is married or not is no longer important to the fans. She still thinks that I'm still the fresh meat from back then. Su Mo smiled. Yeah, it's just a piece of old cured meat. Who said I'm old bacon? He leaned over and pinched her face. Who's the one who likes to nibble on me? You nibble on everything and say that I taste good. Su Mo simply couldn't bear listening to him any longer. She howled and cried out before finally lying in his arms. After a while, she nibbled on his chin. Do you think it will be harder for me to get pregnant like this? Kong Qiao's eyes darkened. How about changing to someone who can get pregnant easily? Su Mo nuzzled him again. Mr. Kong, I think I heard Auntie calling us for dinner downstairs. Her face was full of teasing. Kong Qiao kissed her for a while before letting her go. I'll kill you later. Chapter 4200. Kong Qiao took Su Mo downstairs for dinner. When they got downstairs, Su Mo saw the cup that the auntie hadn't put away. She stared at it for a long time before asking, did Ruan Yun come over when I was asleep? Kong Qiao reached out to rub her hair and smiled. Your nose is sharper than a dog's. Su Mo glared at him and sat down at the dining table. How did you displease her so that she hung you up on Weibo? Kong Qiao sat beside her and said in a low voice while serving her food, maybe because I didn't submit to her. Su Mo picked up a piece of meat and said slowly, you're old cured meat. How can you be so popular? Not necessarily. He gave her a meaningful look. Do you dare say that the meat you usually eat isn't delicious? Su Mo couldn't help blushing when he said those words again. She chose to eat. After they got married, they were busy with Kong Qiao's mother's illness and had no time to care about other things. They didn't even talk about the cooperation between Kong Qiao and He Huan in detail. These things had to be put aside for the future. Right now, Kong Qiao valued his family more. If he couldn't survive in the entertainment industry, he could still work in the financial industry to support his family. Everything he did was to protect his family. He didn't care about popularity or hype. All he wanted was to live a good life with Su Mo. Su Mo lowered her head to eat the meat. He looked at her quietly and then smiled slightly, not saying anything. Ruan Yun was just an outdated topic. As for the car Z from a few years ago, it was even more outdated. Moreover, the male and female leads were them, so there was nothing that couldn't be mentioned, let alone hurt. After dinner, Kong Qiao took Su Mo upstairs. She couldn't fall asleep after sleeping for a long time. After taking a shower, she lay on the bed and read a magazine. Kong Qiao took out his notebook and studied some financial things. Su Mo lay on his shoulder. Kong Qiao, you seem to be very good at this. You should know how good I am. He tilted his head and kissed her on the lips. Su Mo glanced at him and then put her arms around his neck. Tell me, did you sell yourself to get those billions? As soon as she finished speaking, he hit her in the butt. She cried out in a sweet voice. Kong Qiao snorted. Nonsense. He had messed around in the entertainment industry before, but he really didn't sell himself out as often as she thought. However, he didn't want to explain these things. He didn't want to keep reminding Su Mo of his dark history. Since she had let go, he had to learn to let go as well. Kong Chiao typed on the keyboard and said in a low voice, "Investing in the stock market is probably my main income. You can learn it in the future, huh?" Su Mo still hugged him. "I think I should stay at home to take care of the elderly and the children." Kong Chiao smiled and reached out to pinch her face. "So lazy." "Yeah, I'm just lazy. I don't want to move." "You said you would support me," Su Mo said with a little coquettishly. "Isn't that right, husband?" Kong Chiao tilted his head to look at her with a helpless expression on his face. Then, he closed the laptop and picked her up. Su Mo screamed, "Kong Chiao, what are you doing?" He had also showered and felt refreshed. At this moment, his thin lips were pressed against her neck and he kissed her face. His voice was very hoarse. "What do you think I want to do, HM?" If she hadn't been sure before, she could feel it now that they were pressed against each other. Blushing, she put her hand on his shoulder. "No. Kong Chiao, you're almost 40. Shouldn't you? I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talking about life and looking for confidants W. 4M. Chapter 4201. He deliberately misinterpreted her words. "We're almost 40, so we have to have a child as soon as possible, right?" Su Mo wanted to cry, but no tears came out. After a while, she took his hand and whispered, "Can you control yourself? We're newly married." He pressed her fingers against the bed sheet, but he was very gentle. "Mrs. Kong, you think that Mr. Kong is too weak after just getting married." Su Mo wanted to cry, so she turned her face away. "Didn't you say that you're amazing? Can't I get it?" Kong Chiao chuckled. "I feel obliged to constantly refresh your understanding." Su Mo turned her head and stared at him, but her gaze was also fierce, without any lethality. Later, Mr. Kong began to make babies again. Su Mo completely suspected that making babies was just an excuse, and that he actually wanted to do it himself. Humph, he's just lustful, and he still doesn't admit it. He Huan said that he had the abstinence of the male lead of twin. Bullshit, Kong Chiao is obviously lustful. Early the next morning, Su Mo's waist was about to break, and Kong Chiao went to his studio in high spirits. Noon studio had just started, but with Kong Chiao's resources, it shouldn't be difficult. Moreover, Kong Chiao probably didn't take many shows himself, and mainly invested in this area. Although he only mentioned it, Su Mo knew that he would probably leave the operation of the studio to her. He didn't mention it, and she didn't take the initiative to mention it. She wanted to enjoy life at home, but she also knew that Kong Chiao would need a helper when he was busy, and the only person he trusted the most was her. Su Mo lay on the bed, painfully reciting some ancient words that she had learned before. When heaven is about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, he must first torture his mind and strengthen his muscles and bones. Look, her mind was going to be bitter in the future, and her muscles and bones were going to be crushed by him last night. It was really a big pie that he had given her before. He tricked her. Su Mo's complaints were very sweet. Around 5:00 in the afternoon, Kong Chiao came back and found Su Mo at Mr. Kang's place next door. They chatted for a while, and Mr. Kang's body recovered very quickly, which was simply a miracle. After staying for a while, she brought Su Mo out and picked a well-known styling studio. Kong Chiao had already prepared the gown and jewelry. Su Mo was very thin. He picked out a white dress for her. It was simple and elegant. It was matched with a set of diamond jewelry. Su Mo was also used to seeing the world. It looked quite expensive. "It's for Mrs. Kong. Do you like it?" He put it on for her with his own hands and handed her a handbag. Su Mo looked at him in the mirror, then said in a low voice, "You have good control of your measurements." Kong Chao shamelessly replied, "Do you think I've been working for nothing these past few days? Sumo, can we still communicate properly?" Kong Chao had also changed into a formal suit. He looked very dazzling, not at all inferior to those little fresh meats. He abandoned the driver's limousine and drove himself to the Grand Hyatt Hotel with Sumo. At the entrance of the hotel, there was a long red carpet. Dozens of reporters were waiting there, waiting for Kong Chao to appear. The internet had already gone crazy with the past car Z, but Kong Chao did not respond. Did this mean that he had tacitly agreed? Kong Chao's car stopped. The moment Kong Chao got out of the car, there was a commotion in the crowd. Many of them were Kong Chao's fans. There were about 200 to 300 people, and they were shouting Kong Chao's name, wanting to break through the human wall. Kong Chao was not alone. He buckled up and went to the back door of the car to open it. He wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talking about life, looking for a bosom friend W. 4M. Chapter 4202. Sumo got out of the car. He held her hand and said in a low voice when Sumo got out of the car, "I don't intend to keep my marriage a secret, Sumo." She was stunned for a moment before realizing what he meant. She smiled gently and said, "Okay." It was a simple word, but it made her stand clear. She was on his side because they were married. With his age and experience, there was no need for him to hide anymore. He would not hide her in the dark, and then he would be with another woman. He did not want Sumo to suffer anymore. He wanted to tell all his fans that Sumo was his wife and the person he loved. In the future, everything he did, Kong Chao, would be for Sumo's happiness. When they appeared hand in hand, the scene was a little out of control. Fans were screaming and crying. The host was also stunned. She knew that Sumo would come, but she did not expect it to be in such a way. Wasn't Kong Chao a little too impulsive? Kong Chao walked to the front of the stage and picked up the microphone. He said calmly, "Thank you, everyone, for your support over the years. As for the storm on the internet, I just want to say that Sumo and I have been together for many years. I have liked her for many years. Now that she is my wife, I reserve my legal rights against some false rumors. I hope that everyone will love my wife and my future boss, Sumo, as well as you love me." Sumo was stunned for a moment. Kong Chao said in a low voice, "I only changed the name of Noon under your name. It's a wedding gift, Mrs. Kong. In the future, other than old cured meat, you can also have countless little fresh meats. But you can only look at them and not touch them." Sumo stared at him. "Kong Chao, if this can make you have more confidence in our marriage, I don't mind doing anything," he said in a low and hoarse voice. There was even a hint of emotion in his voice. Then, he pulled her shoulders and murmured, "I love you, Sumo." After that, he kissed her. In front of countless cameras and his fans, he admitted that he had slept with Sumo before. He had always loved Sumo, and now, the person he loved was his wife. The news of Kong Chao and Sumo's marriage immediately became a trending topic. And that car Z also became famous once again. There were even people who calculated Kong Chao's endurance based on the time, and the degree of the car's subsidence. It could be said that he was very strong. In any case, Kong Chao, this old cured meat, had his ability X spread far and wide. This was also something that Kong Chao had not expected. However, they were already married, and others could say whatever they wanted. He did not care, and neither did Sumo. But he couldn't see his face. Guan Yun watched in a daze from afar. She finally admitted that Kong Chao fell in love with Sumo. Kong Chao was no longer the Kong Chao of the past. He was no longer the Conchao who yearned for something, because he had obtained everything he wanted. Now, Sumo was his everything. Won Yun looked on quietly. She had dressed very well today and was very presentable. She lost. Between career and love, Concho chose love. She had never understood why Kong Chiao would like Sumo. He was obviously very ordinary, and she could not see any good points. Ruan Yun walked over slowly and looked at Kong Chiao with a smile. There was a tinge of bitterness in her smile. "You knew that I did it, why didn't you retaliate?" she said. Kong Chiao's hand was still holding Sumo's. He turned his head to look at Ruan Yun, his gaze a little deep. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "Because you helped me before." She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talking about life, looking for bosom friends. Chapter 4203. Because of Kong Chiao's words, Ruan Yun was a little teary-eyed. She lowered her eyes and whispered after a long time, "I lost." The one she lost was not Kong Chiao, but Sumo, because Sumo made Kong Chiao change. In the past, Kong Chiao was not like this, he was not a person who easily reconciled, but now, he easily forgave. It was the warmth of love and family that softened him. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, Kong Chiao finally returned to the Kong Chiao of the past because of love. She remembered the Kong Chiao of the past was very beautiful. That was why so many people liked him, not because of his persona, but because of his character. Later on, he had a persona and now he didn't care about it anymore. This was the real Kong Chiao. Ruan Yun finally put it down and said with trembling lips, "Congratulations, Kong Chiao. After so many years, you finally found what you wanted." Kong Chiao smiled. "Thank you." With such a smile, he finally felt relieved. Ruan Yun hugged him and Sumo respectively and said in a choked voice, "You must invite me to your wedding. I'm a big shot. After all, I've earned a lot of money from Kong Chiao all these years." Kong Chiao didn't say anything, but Sumo did. When Ruan Yun left, Mr. Kong glanced at Mrs. Kong. "You are so generous. You don't mind?" "Because I don't plan to hold a public wedding." Sumo smiled. "We're already living together, and I've already received Mom's gift for our first meeting. Also, all of your money is under my name, so what's the point of holding a wedding?" He reached out and pinched her face. "I hope you don't have any other reasons." "I promise I didn't." Sumo held his arm and rested her head on his shoulder, smiling sweetly. "Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to tell you." Kong Chiao smiled and walked into the banquet hall with her in his arms. He was the main character, so he was the center of attention. Sumo didn't mind. Being an artist meant that he wasn't her husband outside, and she could understand it very well. She let him communicate with his former colleagues in some big shots, while she took her things and sat in the corner. Kong Chiao was afraid that she would be left out, so she came over to see her from time to time. Sumo said indifferently, "You can do your own thing." He smiled and went back to his work. Now that he thought about it, he and Sumo were indeed suitable in many aspects. Later on, Mo came as well. Naturally, he was also the center of attention. He and Kong Chiao were surrounded by many female celebrities. They were either there for resources or for sex. Just in time, Hee-hwan came over. After making a round, she came to Sumo's place. Sumo sat on the sofa with her and handed her a plate full of food. "This is for you. I saw you coming just now. I guess you won't stay there for long." He Huan accepted her kindness and ate absent-mindedly. She smiled and said, "You heard about it too." Su Mo was taken aback for a moment before smiling. "I see. Actually, it doesn't matter. What matters is that both parties feel comfortable." In this day and age, divorce was actually not a big deal. If the couple really loved each other, they could remarry at any time. She was just afraid that Qin Mo could not control his lower body. If that happened, it would be difficult to clean up the mess. It was up to He Huan. From Su Mo's point of view, He Huan and Rong Yu would not end up together. In between, He Huan got married and had a child. They had not been together for a few years, and they did not make it clear in the past. The distance between them was more than thousands of miles. She thought for a moment and said, "But He Huan, no matter what, I hope that you will be loyal to your heart at all times. Don't be angry. You see, Kong Qiao and I are together now. We didn't have a good relationship before, so I don't like him anymore." Chapter 4204. Su Mo scrunched her nose and whispered, "He's a mess." He Huan had always been abroad and was in the entertainment circle, so how could she not know? However, she pretended not to know. "Really? See, you can act too, He Huan." Su Mo laughed. "Tell me, who is the worst at acting in front of, the person you don't want to act the most, and the person you like the most?" He Huan rolled her eyes. "I didn't know you were so eloquent. He Huan, whose lobbyist are you?" "What lobbyist? Isn't it too late to talk about it when you're already divorced?" Su Mo sighed. "I just feel pity for the two of you. You two are clearly a good match." He Huan shook her head and picked up a glass of red wine. "Our personalities aren't compatible. I might not be a girl's personality, he's overbearing, so we can't get along." They were closest to love when He Huan fell in love with Qin Mo. At that time, he hadn't been disappointed in her. However, a woman appeared in the middle of it all. After seeing them in the hospital, she couldn't love him anymore. Because when they made love, she would sometimes open her eyes and think of the scene where he took that woman to have an abortion. He said that it wasn't his child, but he had no proof. He had even protected that woman abroad and had the best resources overseas. He Huan had met that woman a few times abroad, but that woman treated her as if she didn't exist and never spoke to her. There was one time when she was directing a film with that woman's name, but He Huan refused to direct it. Qin Mo had called her, and she had hung up immediately after hearing what he had to say. After that, they hadn't seen each other for a year. She hadn't returned to B City, and when he went to America, she had avoided him. Later, she heard that he had a French meal with that woman, and he had even stayed at that woman's apartment for 2 days. This matter was left unsettled. He Huan didn't ask about it because she gave up on the marriage. Of course, she didn't want to be with Rong Yu either. She just felt that there was still a beautiful part in her heart and that there was still a pure part of her life. He Huan admitted that she yearned for the pure and beautiful part of the past. Being with Qin Mo was exciting, but it was also very painful. She couldn't explain why she liked him. Maybe it started from the time they were in bed, or maybe he was handsome and charming. It wasn't hard to like him, but it was hard to make a mature, charming, and successful man stay faithful to her forever. When they couldn't even make do with each other, they couldn't go on. In fact, He Huan knew that the biggest problem between them was not Rong Yu, but Qin Mo and that woman. Perhaps, she said marriage reluctantly, but she couldn't really do it. Unreconciled, unforgiving, unreconciled. However, she did not regret it. However, he felt guilty towards Yi Huan. She was unhappy. She was used to living alone, but now when she went home, she always felt that something was missing. She didn't miss Chinamo. After all, it was an adult love. It didn't matter if she was busy with work or not. However, she really missed Yi Huan. She couldn't go to the Qin residence every day to see her. Yi Huan never knew that it was so hard to be separated from Yi Huan. She had never felt this way when she was abroad for a year and a half. Her mother persuaded her to try and get Yi Huan over, but Yi Huan thought about it again and again and decided not to. Chapter 4205. She vaguely knew that if she took Yi Huan, even if Qin Mo was willing to let her go, he wouldn't let her off. Therefore, her heart ached every day. Her apartment was very big and she had asked someone to decorate a children's room, but she also knew that Yi Huan might not even be able to stay here for one night, because Qin Mo's agreement stated that she couldn't take care of Yi Huan for more than 8 hours. After the marriage ended, he was very bossy when it came to raising and visiting Yi Huan, but Yi Huan couldn't find a word to refute because she had neglected Yi Huan for several years, and it was indeed better for Qin Mo and the Qin family to take care of her. Her mother arranged a blind date for her, saying that if she got married and had a child, she wouldn't think like this anymore. Yi Huan didn't want to have a child, and she didn't want to love anyone anymore. Maybe she just couldn't endure seeing him. Thinking about it, she drank the red wine in the glass in one gulp. Her face was a little red, and her short black hair made her look even more delicate. She had always been good-looking, but she didn't dress up too much. Most of the time, she wore neutral clothes. Tonight, she was wearing a black Hepburn evening gown and jewelry, looking very dazzling. In Su Mo's opinion, Yi Huan's face was better than Wen Yuan's, but she was a little thinner. However, being thinner naturally gave her a different beauty. Now, Yi Huan didn't look like Director He at all. Instead, she looked like a petite girl, not a woman who had a child. She drank a little too much, probably because she was in a bad mood. Su Mo quietly accompanied her until Qin Mo walked over, and then he went to find Kong Qiao to avoid suspicion. Yi Huan leaned against the back of the sofa and saw Qin Mo. Her eyes narrowed to a slit. "It's you." Qin Mo reached out and took the glass she had drunk from. He asked calmly, "Why did you drink?" Yi Huan smiled faintly. "Guess." She looked very friendly and soft, not aggressive at all. Qin Mo couldn't help but be gentle. In a bad mood. She shifted and rested her head on his shoulder. Her hand went around to the back of his head and gently stroked his dark hair. Rarely had she been so gentle with him, so womanly. Qin Mo's body tensed up, and he said in a hoarse voice, "You drank too much." Yi Huan buried her face in his neck and giggled. "I'm not drunk." He looked at her silently. "And you said you weren't drunk." As a man and a woman who had just divorced, they should keep their distance. Although they hadn't announced it officially, he should also stay away from her personally. He didn't want to be poisoned by Yi Huan again. However, he didn't move at all and let her lean on him. He even thought bitterly that she could only lean on him like this after drinking. Normally, she was actually very afraid of him. Because he had been rough with her once. Qin Mo said calmly, "I'll send you back." Yi Huan put her arms around his neck and shook her head gently. "No. My mom asked me to have another child so that I won't miss Yi Huan. Let's have another child. You can take care of Yi Huan, and the child will belong to me. What do you think?" Yi Huan said silly words. Qin Mo's body stiffened. Suddenly, he realized why she had been drinking and why she was slightly drunk. Yi Huan still couldn't let go of Yi Huan. She was the one who gave birth to Yi Huan. It wasn't that she didn't love her, but she didn't know how to love her after not getting along with her for a long time. Their divorce made Yi Huan feel guilty, as if she didn't want Yi Huan anymore. Chapter 4206. She didn't feel guilty for the past few years because they were still married. Now that they were divorced, she couldn't make up for it. Chinemo felt bad for a moment. He felt uncomfortable and his Adam's apple moved slightly. Juan, we can't have children after we're divorced. Her body stiffened, but she still hugged his neck and asked in a low voice, if you get married and have children, can you give me Juan? I don't have to get married. Chinemo closed his eyes. If I get married, I won't have children. It was probably because he was angry with her that he said such a thing. Juan's eyes were a little warm. She was half drunk, but she could understand what he said. In this life, she could only be Juan's mother for 8 hours. Maybe in the future when Chinemo got married, it would be inconvenient for her to see him even if she wanted to. She was sad, she was in pain, and it was all caused by Chinemo. She clenched her fists and hit his shoulder a few times. She murmured, Chinemo, you are so cruel. Same here. He smiled bitterly and pushed her away with one hand. There are so many people here. Don't forget yourself, Director He. You really don't have to act in front of me just to see Juan. You're drunk, but you're not drunk. You just want to soften my heart, right? Juan leaned against the sofa and closed her eyes. Her red lips were slightly opened and her voice was hoarse. It was very tempting. You've seen through Chinemo. You're still so good. Chinemo's face suddenly became very ugly. He really wanted to strangle her. Then, he smiled coldly. If you like children so much, you can have one with Romeo. This was another angry sentence. Juan opened her eyes and looked at him quietly. Then she whispered, do you hate me very much? Chinemo was so annoyed that he wanted to smoke, but he resisted. I think so. She closed her eyes again and chuckled softly. Unfortunately, so am I. As she smiled, she felt very uncomfortable. She said that she had to go to the washroom, so she had to excuse herself. Chinemo looked at her back view and felt that she was really fucking a fucking dog. Just then, he received a call from his mother, saying that Juan wasn't feeling well. She didn't have a fever, just that she was not feeling well. She was making a lot of noise and especially wanted her father and mother. Chinemo frowned as he heard his mother say, can you ask Juan to come home with you to visit Juan? Although you are divorced, it's only right for you to look after your child together since you haven't found anyone to look after her. You didn't look for anyone. Chinemo felt that he was being cheated on. His wife had always had someone else in her heart, and this was called not looking for the right person. However, since Juan wasn't feeling well, he was still willing to ask Juan to go back with him. Moreover, Juan was there. Didn't she just say that she couldn't bear to part with the child? Let's see if she's telling the truth. Chinemo went to find Juan and went straight to the washroom. When Juan came out of the washroom, her eyes were a little red. When she saw Chinemo, she looked down and said, I'll ask the driver to pick me up. Juan is sick. My mother asked us to go back and see her. It's up to you whether you want to go or not. Chinemo said expressionlessly. Juan was stunned and immediately asked, what's the problem? I don't know. I'll find out when I go back. Chinemo whispered. Let's go. Juan still went with him. When they walked to the door, Chinemo took off his coat and put it on her shoulders. His action was a little rough. Why are you wearing dresses like others? Wasn't it good before? She wasn't surprised that he didn't like her. Juan didn't say anything, but she was nervous in the car. Chapter 4207. Chinemo drove and said faintly, if you had been so worried about Juan since she was born, we wouldn't be in this situation today. He Huan leaned against the back of the seat and murmured, Qin Mo, do you think it's useful to say this? She didn't want to talk to him and felt very sad, so she bit her fist and looked out of the window. He turned his head and looked at her. It seemed that she was really sad, so he didn't say anything and stepped on the accelerator. It took less than an hour to reach home. Fortunately, Qin Chen had already come to see her. She was just scared and in a bad mood. She got hurt. This conclusion made Yi Liangqiu and Qin Anlin a little confused. How could such a small person get hurt? Behind them, Qin Chen whispered, Mom, Dad, do you really think that Qin Mo and He Huan got divorced and Yi Huan didn't notice it at all? She was living in Qin Mo's place before, but now she was sent here like a left-behind child. Yi Liangqiu sighed softly and looked at Qin Anlin secretly. Qin Anlin touched his nose and said, it was Qin Mo's fault. He hurt his wife like that and still has the face to ask for a divorce. Shouldn't a normal man kneel and beg for forgiveness? Qin Chen smiled and said, Dad, Qin Mo's character is like yours. Qin Anlin looked at his daughter with a complicated look and said, I kneel a lot of eggs, ask your mother. Yi Liangqiu rolled her eyes at him and then asked Qin Chen gently, tell me, how do you treat Yi Huan's illness? Yi Huan has no sense of security. To put it bluntly, she needs her parents, or she will suffer some psychological damage. Mom, Dad, I will talk to Qin Mo and He Huan about this. They don't want their children to live a painful life. Qin Chen said seriously. Yi Liangqiu heard that it was quite serious and looked at her husband worriedly from time to time. Qin Anlin loved his wife very much. He touched his nose and said, okay, I will talk to this little bastard. Yi Liangqiu was relieved and thought that it would be better if Qin Mo brought He Huan with him. She was worried for a while and immediately went to accompany Yi Huan, for fear that the little person would be sad when she woke up. Alas, she took care of the child and gritted her teeth at the two big ones. So when Qin Mo and He Huan came over, they felt a little guilty, especially after Qin Chen said it. He Huan went to accompany the child, so Qin Chen and Qin Mo talked alone in the study. Qin Chen whispered, Brother, Yi Huan's illness is not serious. If she can't get over it for a while, I am afraid that she will have a psychological disease in the future. You will regret it later. Not to mention finding a second love, you will probably be busy taking care of Yi Huan all the time. Qin Mo smoked and asked, what should we do? Yi Huan is too nervous, so she has some mental disorders. Medicine can be used, but a relatively safe environment is more important. Qin Chen whispered. Qin Mo frowned, you mean that I should remarry He Huan? You are divorced. How can you be so childish? Qin Chen smiled, but as parents, you should make some sacrifices for your children. I suggest that you build a new relationship with He Huan and bring Yi Huan to live with you temporarily. He Huan can live there for a while and she can also go to film. You can take Yi Huan to visit her and let Yi Huan feel that you and your husband have a good relationship. Qin Mo frowned, can we pretend like this forever? She will know sooner or later. After this age, it will be much better when she is 8 or 9. Qin Chen smiled, it's up to you guys to decide. Brother, don't forget that you were the one who wanted to give birth to Yi Huan. You were the one who forced Yi Huan to do so. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 4208. Qin Mo didn't say anything. He just walked to the French window and smoked quietly. Qin Chen walked over, stood beside him, and patted him on the shoulder. Second brother, I know what you're thinking, but think more about Yi Huan, even if it's just a pretense, okay? Qin Mo turned his head to look at his sister, and then smiled bitterly. He looked up and sighed. Chen, brother, you, me, and Qin Mu are all worried. Qin Chen smiled slightly. We're all fine now. In fact, I really don't think you and He Huan have reached that point, unless you don't like her anymore. The eyes couldn't lie. In Qin Mo's eyes, there was still only He Huan. Qin Mo glanced at her and didn't say anything more. He put out the cigarette. I'm going to see Yi Huan. Take Yi Huan back tonight. Qin Chen's voice was a little tense. Brother, or you'll regret it in the future. Unless you don't want Yi Huan anymore and want to have another one. Qin Mo looked at her and couldn't say anything for a long time. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, really? Qin Chen didn't say anything, but his expression was a little serious. Whether it was true or not, he had to think about it himself. Qin Mo's jaw tightened, and he quickly walked to Yi Huan's bedroom. As for Qin Chen, he poured himself a glass of red wine and smiled. In fact, her acting skills were not bad, and she really coaxed Qin Mo and Yi Huan. Thinking about it, she couldn't help laughing. But thinking that if she was exposed in the future, she might have to hide abroad for a while. Of course, she told Lan Yu about it, and Lan Yu taught her a lesson that night, the kind that broke her skin and flesh. Qin Chen went back, and the villa was silent. Yi Huan woke up, looked at her mother with her big eyes, and threw herself into Yi Huan's arms, sobbing. Mom! Yi Huan felt sad and hugged the little guy. Tears welled up in Yi Huan's big black eyes. She bit her lips and said, Huan wants to go home. I want my parents. Yi Huan was in a dilemma. She and Qin Mo were divorced. How could they live together? At this moment, Qin Mo came over and hugged Yi Huan and kissed her. He said hoarsely, Daddy will take you home. Aren't you leaving too, Mommy? Yi Huan lay on her father's shoulder, staring at Yi Huan with her big eyes. Qin Mo said in a low voice, I'm not leaving. Mommy and I will bring Yi Huan home in a while. Now, be good and let Grandma help you get dressed, okay? Yi Liangqiu was also shocked. What was going on? Qin Mo gestured for her to help Yi Huan put on her clothes while he called Yi Huan out. In the corridor, he told her what Qin Chen said, and then looked at her quietly, your decision. Yi Huan was silent for a long time, and then asked hoarsely, do I have a choice? She didn't say anything more. She went back to the room and held Yi Huan in her arms. Then she said to Yi Liangqiu, Mom, we'll go back first. Yi Liangqiu was very surprised. After a while, she warned her son with her eyes not to mess around. After the three of them left, she leaned on Qin Anlin and said, I don't know what's going on with them. Why did Yi Huan agree to go back with Qin Mo? Qin Anlin looked at his wife and said speechlessly, you have to ask what Qin Chen said to Qin Mo. I don't think it's Qin Mo who wants to deceive Yi Huan. They were all deceived by Qin Chen. He must have used Yi Huan to talk about it. As parents, they gave in and lived together again. You see, Su Cheng will ask for an explanation. Yi Liangqiu was surprised. Chapter 4209. Qin Anlin glanced at his wife and said, you're not well informed. Su Cheng has already started looking for blind dates for Yi Huan. Qin Mo is in his 30s, so he's not in a hurry because he's a man. However, Yi Huan is different. A woman's youth is limited. Think about it, how can Su Cheng not be anxious? Yi Liangqiu sighed and didn't know what to say. She really couldn't see through the relationship between these two kids. If she said that they didn't have each other in their hearts, it was obvious that there was a chance, but they still broke up. She didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. She was most afraid that they would hurt each other in the future. Yi Liangqiu was very conflicted, but Qin Anlin comforted her. Children have their own blessings. No one can run away. Look at the other kids. They're even worse than them, but they're still fine. Actually, none of my kids beat their wives. Qin Mo is a jerk. Yi Liangqiu snorted coldly. Anyway, if he continues to mess around, I won't help him. You want to put justice before family. Qin Anlin couldn't help but laugh. Look at you. You still hate evil as much as before. Now, you even hate your own son. Yi Liangqiu was silent for a while before she murmured, Anlin, Su Qing is to me like Lin Sisi is to Chin Chin. I can't pay back what I owe, so I can't bear to see her being tortured by Qin Mo. Although it's a private matter, I always feel guilty and feel that I've wronged Su Qing. Qin Anlin patted her on the shoulder. Don't think too much about it. He Huan is also an adult. She won't suffer too much at Qin Mo's hands. Come to think of it, our son has suffered a lot as well. You should feel sorry for him. Yi Liangqiu glanced at him and suddenly said, Actually, Qin Mo is the most like you. You're a jerk. Why are you talking about me? Qin Anlin touched his nose helplessly. Then, he coaxed his wife. At night, Qin Mo drove while Yi Huan hugged Yi Huan in the back seat. Yi Huan's eyes widened, and she asked every once in a while, Daddy, are we really going home? She asked 4 or 5 times because Aunt Chin Chin told her that as long as she asked like this, her parents would definitely take her home, and they wouldn't dare to casually send her back to her grandmother's house. Looking at it now, it was indeed useful. Aunt Chin Chin is so smart. Qin Mo looked at Yi Huan from time to time in the rearview mirror and said gently, Of course we're going back. As he spoke, his black eyes seemed to inadvertently sweep past Yi Huan. Yi Huan didn't say anything and just hugged Yi Huan. Little Yi Huan was very satisfied. Moreover, in her heart, Aunt Chin Chin was the great sage, heaven's equal. She was omnipotent. Aunt Chin Chin was handsome and had excellent medical skills. When she grew up, she wanted to marry someone like Aunt Chin Chin. If Qin Mo knew about this, he would vomit blood. He immediately asked his sister to change back into women's clothes. She really flirted all day long and taught children bad things. On such a quiet night, Yi Huan spoke for a long time, and every word made Qin Mo's heart jump. He felt that he had to take care of this child himself, otherwise, there would be no regrets that he could make up for. The car stopped outside his apartment. He opened the door and went to the back to take Yi Huan. Then, he whispered, Take out a small suitcase from the trunk. It's filled with Yi Huan's pillow and doll. Yi Huan went to take it and went back to the apartment with him. Yi Huan fell asleep in his arms, and she was as quiet as a doll. After such a long time, Yi Huan was tired, and so was the adult. Chapter 42:10. Qin Mo put Yi Huan on the big bed in the master bedroom. When he lifted his body, he whispered, You will sleep here tonight. Yi Huan asked instinctively, You'll sleep in the guest room? Qin Mo straightened up and looked at her for a long time before saying, I'll sleep here too. He paused and said, I won't do anything to you. What we're doing now is to give Yi Huan a good environment. Think about it yourself. Yi Huan lowered her eyes and said in a hoarse voice, I can only agree to let you stay here for 2 days a week. Also, I want to sleep in separate beds. What do you think I can do with Yi Huan in between? And I'm not that desperate. He even said, I don't lack women. Yi Huan's face was a little pale. She stared at him for a few seconds and then walked to the bathroom. He said behind her, Your clothes are still here. Ignoring him, she removed her makeup and showered, washing away her tiredness. When she came out, she was wearing a set of conservative pajamas. It was a two-piece set, but it made her look very petite. She crawled next to Yi Huan, dimmed the lights and didn't talk to him. Chi Nemo stood for a while and went to take a shower. When he came out, Yi Huan's eyes were closed as if she was asleep, but he knew that she wouldn't fall asleep. She was afraid of the bed. It seemed normal when she lay down just now, but her body was stiff. He smiled awkwardly, lay flat, and then turned his body to look at little Yi Huan. The little girl was sleeping deeply, and her round head was so cute that he couldn't help kissing her. When he looked up, he saw Yi Huan looking at him. Their eyes met, and he said in a hoarse voice, "When will you go to Sea City for filming?" "In a week," she said. Chi Nemo closed his eyes and said, "You'll stay here for a week, and I'll let you go after a week. Is that a condition?" Yi Huan's voice was as cold as water in the night. "Chi Nemo, I hope you remember what you said." After that, she closed her eyes, as if she didn't want to talk to him anymore. Just as she was about to fall asleep, her hand was grasped by a firm big hand, so all her sleepiness disappeared. Moreover, she felt that the air around her was thin, as if she was going to suffocate at any time. Her heart was also beating rapidly, and it was very uncomfortable. No matter what, Yi Huan knew what this meant. She was afraid of him, afraid that he would get close to her. She wanted to move her hand away, but she couldn't move. Her body was frozen. Chi Nemo watched her reaction. Then, he let go of her hand, and her body slowly relaxed. Neither of them said it, but they both knew it in their hearts. After that, Chi Nemo didn't touch her again. They lived together, but no matter how much his body craved her, he didn't touch her at all. She wasn't the only one who couldn't let go of what had happened that night. He couldn't let go either. The night passed, and when Yi Huan woke up, the three of them were on the same bed. It was like a dream to her. She stared at the ceiling for a long time before coming back to her senses. Chi Mo's voice rang out, "I'll send her to the nursery later." "I'll send you wherever you go." She looked at him and found that he was awake, so she whispered, "I'll drive myself." Chi Nemo didn't say anything and got up. "I'll make breakfast." Yi Huan continued to lie down, feeling a little confused. They were divorced, and they hated each other, but they still had to lie in the same bed to sleep. She didn't sleep well last night, and her complexion was worse, but she didn't feel sleepy anymore. Chapter 42:11. Yi Huan lifted the quilt to wash her face and brush her teeth. When she came back, Yi Huan was awake. The little girl was sitting under the quilt with a doll in her hands. She was very cute. Yi Huan went over and knelt on one leg by the bed. "Get dressed and get ready for school, okay?" Yi Huan said coquettishly, "I don't want to go to school." Yi Huan didn't know how to coax a child. She even thought that it was fine if Yi Huan didn't want to go to school. It was a nursery anyway, and she was sick last night. Although she was away from home most of the time, women were always tolerant of their little girls. So she went to Chi Nemo and discussed it. "Yi Huan doesn't want to go to school today. Why don't I take care of her for the day? I don't have much to do today." Chi Nemo was frying an egg. He was wearing a pair of black casual pants and a light-colored knitted top, which accentuated his long legs and strong figure. As he was making breakfast, he glanced at Yi Huan and said disapprovingly, "You'll only spoil her." Yi Huan bit her lip. "She was sick last night." Chi Nemo smiled. "She's not sick today." He was a very smart person, and he had spent a lot of time with Yi Huan. He also had a certain understanding of his sister, Chin Chen. He was indeed stunned last night, but when he was making breakfast just now, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. If there was really a serious problem with Yi Huan, Qin Chen wouldn't have left last night. He had been fooled. Yi Huan should have just been shocked last night. Qin Chen said that she had an incurable disease. She had been asking for a beating since she was a child. But he wouldn't say that to Yi Huan. On the one hand, he had told her about Qin Chen. If he clarified it now, it would seem that he was up to no good. On the other hand, it seemed that he didn't want to make it clear. There was nothing wrong with living 2 days a week. He didn't have a woman, and he didn't have any plans to get married. It was good to make things difficult for this heartless little thing. Before that, Qin Mo had already made a happy decision. Yi Huan suddenly got angry. Yi Huan won't go to school today. Qin Mo placed the fried egg on the plate and looked down at Yi Huan. Yi Huan took a step back, but she managed to hold herself back and glared back at him. Yi Huan is not a boy. She doesn't need an elite education. I'm her mother. I have the right to decide if she wants to go to school today. After she said that, he said softly, then, you take care of her. Auntie will come over to cook lunch. Also, don't bring her out today. She might have caught a cold last night. With that, he shifted his chin. Bring her over for breakfast. You can skip school, but you still have to eat breakfast. Yi Huan was surprised. She didn't expect Qin Mo to be so easy to talk to. She quietly returned to the bedroom. Yi Huan was bouncing up and down on the bed, shouting, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to go to school. Hugging Yi Huan, she said, Mommy is the best. I don't have to go to school anymore. At that moment, Yi Huan was at a loss. Qin Mo leaned against the door and said calmly, now you know, a loving mother leads to a prodigal son. Yi Huan carried Yi Huan down and bit her lip. What's wrong with that? Look at Cher. She's living a good life. Qin Mo sneered. That's because Yi Muyan spoils her. Her parents don't spoil her like that. Yi Huan snorted. Then I'll find someone for Yi Huan. Xiangnan is not bad. He's a sweet boy. Qin Mo snorted. No one in this world is worthy of our Yi Huan. Yi Huan said to Yi Huan directly, your father wants you to stay single for the rest of your life. Chapter 42:12. What do you mean by being single? Does it mean that I don't have to go to school? Yi Huan asked. After she asked, the two adults didn't know how to answer her. After a while, Qin Mo raised his chin and said, take her to breakfast. He couldn't help but add, don't teach her like that in the future. Yi Huan bit her lip and said, I didn't teach her like that. It's you. Qin Mo's eyes were a little clear. He looked at her quietly and then went out first. Yi Huan was a little embarrassed to help Yi Huan get dressed. Then she took her to brush her teeth and wash her face. Yi Huan was very happy. Looking at such a cute little person, Yi Huan's originally gloomy mood was a lot better. She took the little fellow to have breakfast. Yi Huan was also very happy because she didn't have to go to school. While eating, she said very cleverly, Huan Huan will be single every day. As her father, he drank a mouthful of milk to calm himself down. He thought to himself, I'm the one who will be single now. After breakfast, when Yi Huan was cleaning up, Qin Mo sent Yi Huan away. Then he walked behind Yi Huan in the kitchen and almost stuck to her body. He said a little softly, since we can't let Yi Huan know, we should block the news of our divorce, at least for a few years. Yi Huan's hand paused. Then she slowly turned off the tap and looked at him sideways, it's fine as long as you don't explain. There's no need to deliberately show off. We don't have to attend public events together. Just try to avoid it. He understood what she meant. They still had to draw a line. He was afraid that it was not that simple. He was a little angry. His nose was blowing hot air. He approached her step by step and said in a hoarse voice, "You and you. It has nothing to do with you." She leaned her body against the countertop and turned her head away. "Chinemo, you're the one who wants a divorce. Right now, we're only barely getting along for the sake of happiness. However, there are no restrictions between us, legal or emotional. So, please don't ask about my affairs. Similarly, I won't ask about your private affairs either." Chinemo looked at her condescendingly. After a while, he asked softly, "Is this what you want to say to me?" Juan agreed. Chinemo took 2 steps back and smiled faintly. "You're right. You don't have to worry. I've said that I don't lack women. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you." Juan put her hand on the countertop while Chinemo looked at her deeply before leaving. The good atmosphere and mood were all gone. When he went to the company, he drove very fast. When he arrived at the company, he had a sour look on his face. Poor King Entertainment's upper management and middle management had to look at their boss's sour face the whole day. Juan stayed in the condominium with Juan. She was actually a little absent-minded. She didn't expect to come back so soon. He didn't really come back, but he took care of Juan. Juan was very happy. She didn't have any illness anymore. She played with the doll at home. On the other hand, Juan opened her laptop and searched for what Chinemo had said about Juan's situation. After searching for a long time, she found a set of questions and helped Juan do it. At first, Juan was willing. She answered in a childish voice as she played with her favorite toy. But then she wrinkled her little nose and said, "What an idiotic question." Juan's face froze. This set of questions was created by the world's most famous psychologist. Now that Juan said it was an idiotic question, what kind of answer was that? She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, hubby, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talk about life and find a confidant. Chapter 42:13. She couldn't answer and just looked at Juan. Juan sat in her arms and gave her favorite toy, "Mama, let's play this together." Juan felt that this toy was a little stupid. Anyway, she had a good time later. At noon, the auntie made delicious food. The two of them were full and lay in bed together. Juan's little belly was round and cute. Juan looked at the little fellow sideways, covered her with a thin quilt and coaxed her to take a nap. Juan curled up in her arms and asked in a daze, "Mama, you won't leave again, will you?" Juan felt a pain in her heart and reached out to rub her hair. "I'll come back to accompany you when I'm not working, okay?" Juan hugged her neck and tilted her little head. Juan felt a burst of softness in her heart, an indescribable feeling. Juan was the only softness in her marriage with Chinemo. Everything else wasn't good, and Juan wasn't the kind of woman who couldn't let go. If he wanted to divorce her after being rough with her, it would be fine. She could turn around and not drag things out. She wouldn't say that she hated him to the core to the point of meeting her enemies. After all, they still had a child. Now they were going to live together again. She just regarded herself as Juan's mother and treated Juan well. If Chinemo wanted to treat her like before, she would never agree. They actually had nothing to do with each other. Juan gently patted Juan's little body and whispered, "In a week, I will go to another place to shoot a film. Can I come back to see you once in half a month? Is it far?" Juan had not fallen asleep. She suddenly arched her little head and asked. He Huan said, yes, by plane. I'll go to see you with Dad. Yi Huan's voice was very soft. She was really sleepy, but she wanted to talk to her mother. She loved talking to her mother the most. If she could, she wanted to hug her mother and talk to her father forever. That way, the baby would be very, very happy. After hearing what Yi Huan said, Yi Huan was stunned. She looked at Yi Huan and didn't say anything for a long time. Yi Huan had fallen asleep. Her little face was calm, and her eyelashes were like two little fans hanging down, making her look very cute. Her facial features were exquisite, somewhat resembling Yi Huan, but more resembling Qin Mo. Yi Huan stretched out her hand and gently traced the little fellow's facial features. Her heart was full of pain. The reason why she agreed to meet Qin Mo was because of Yi Huan, and she didn't want to look for someone else for the time being. Men were not that important to her. That was how she had been through all these years. Yi Huan smelled the scent on Yi Huan's body and slowly fell asleep. In the dream, there was no script. In the dream, she did not argue with Qin Mo, nor did she see Qin Mo with another woman in the obstetrics and gynecology department. In the dream, there was no upcoming blind date. In the dream, there was only the freedom of youth. At that time, Rongyu had not yet become a vegetable, and Qin Mo had not confessed to her. At that time, she was very happy and lived freely. When she woke up in the afternoon, Yi Huan's head was a little groggy. When she reached out to touch her forehead, she realized that her forehead was a little hot. When she tried to prop herself up, all her bones were a little sore. Mom! A soft voice sounded beside her ear. Yi Huan opened her eyes. Yi Huan lay beside her and looked at her pitifully. Mommy is sick. Yi Huan forced a smile. After smiling, she felt even more pain all over her body. How did Yi Huan know? She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, hubby, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talking about life and looking for bosom friends. Chapter 42:14. Mommy's body is so hot. The baby is asking Daddy to come home. Yi Huan lay on the side and said proudly. She seemed to be saying that the baby knew how to take care of Mommy. How capable. Yi Huan was a little surprised. She looked to the side and didn't see Qin Mo. Daddy is in the kitchen pouring water for Mommy and taking her medicine. Yi Huan seemed to know what she was thinking and said. Yi Huan closed her eyes and said, the baby is so obedient. She reached out to Momo. Yi Huan was like a little animal, obedient to her mother. Yi Huan felt a surge of warmth in her heart. She wanted to hug Yi Huan but hesitated. She was afraid that she would pass on her illness to Yi Huan. At this moment, Qin Mo came over. He was still wearing the suit he had worn when he left in the morning, but he had taken off his jacket. Now, he was wearing a pair of iron gray trousers, a white shirt, and a light gray twill tie. He looked very noble. He held a glass of water and a medicine box in his hand. He sat on the bed and said, you probably caught a cold last night. I took your temperature. It's 39 degrees. Take some medicine first. If it doesn't work, I'll take you to the hospital. Yi Huan looked at him. Her throat seemed to be burning. Are you not feeling well? His gaze was deep. Don't learn from others and wear evening gowns in the future. That has nothing to do with this. Then, everyone who wears it will catch a cold. Yi Huan retorted. Then, she propped herself against the headboard and took the glass from him. Qin Mo stared at her. But others are used to showing their arms and legs. Besides, they are celebrities and need to show their bodies and skin. Juan, you are the director. Is it necessary? So I have to dress like a man. She looked at him strangely and gestured for him to give her the medicine box. He was too strange. They were already divorced, so he didn't care what she wore. Mo looked at her silently. Then, he opened the box and didn't give her 2 pills. Instead, he put them by her lips. Juan looked at him. His voice was low and hoarse. Juan is watching from the side. She took the medicine reluctantly. Her soft lips touched his palm and his body throbbed. In fact, he hadn't touched a woman for a long time since that dark night. Last night, he and Juan were lying in the same bed. He had lied. He clearly had feelings and desires. But he couldn't admit it because he was too proud. Juan took the medicine and drank half a glass of water. Her body still hurt, so she lay down and closed her eyes. I want to sleep for a while. Then, Mo didn't say anything and took away the glass. After a while, Juan opened her eyes and looked at each other. From where you are my temperature? From Mo, I took it from you, he asked. From Yang, from Daddy, eyes. From Juan's yang. You. He, his eyes and he. Shut. You can have a good rest now. Juan chuckled. Mo took Juan away, saying that she wanted her mother to have a good rest. Juan didn't understand. She asked her father on the sofa outside, why did you lie to her when you were taking her temperature from under her armpit? Mo hugged his daughter and kissed her. This is the fun between husband and wife. Juan's eyes widened. She couldn't understand this topic. Mo pulled her hair and smiled. Baby, you did very well today. You can even call Daddy when you're sick. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talking about life and looking for confidants. Chapter 42:15. Juan was excited to hear that. She hesitated for a while before telling her father, actually, Mommy has symptoms. Huh? Mo asked absent-mindedly as he tugged at his daughter's hair. Juan's little face was straight as she said seriously, Mommy was very strange today. She asked me a lot of questions. I thought I was a little stupid, but in order to cooperate with Mommy and not hurt Mommy's self-esteem, I still answered. Daddy, is Mommy's brain fried to ask me these questions? Mo laughed, not knowing how to answer his daughter's question. If Juan knew, she would vomit blood. Mo accompanied the little girl for a while before checking on Juan. She was sleeping very soundly. Fortunately, the temperature had dropped a little, but it was still 38 degrees Celsius. It was not comfortable and soon, she was covered in sweat. Mo thought about it and took a towel to wipe her down. When he was unbuttoning her shirt, he was a little hesitant. He looked at the beads of sweat on her delicate skin. It was fine and creamy. Originally, he just wanted to wipe her sweat, but now, he had other thoughts. Juan did not wake up. His face was a little red as he hastily wiped her down and pulled up her pajamas. If it weren't for the fact that they were divorced, he wouldn't have been so gentlemanly. He would have nibbled and kissed her. After Mo was done wiping Juan, he carried her to the other side of the bed. He wanted to change the bed sheets, but he didn't want to wake her up. Juan was taken care of by the auntie, so he sat by her side to guard her. Juan did not wake up until late at night. Her back was cold, and she seemed to be sweating all over. Her body was weak. She opened her eyes and looked around. It was familiar yet strange, and it was the place where she had experienced a dark night. She also saw Chin-mo and struggled to sit up. "What time is it now?" Chin-mo put down the magazine in his hand. "It's 8. Hee-hwan bit her lower lip. "Thank you for taking care of me." She was originally here to take care of Hee-hwan, but she did not expect to fall sick. Chin-mo just looked at her and said after a while, "I should also thank you for coming to accompany Hee-hwan. Let's call it even." "Don't say thank you. We grew up together. If we can't be husband and wife, we can't be enemies." She didn't say anything. Then she said she was hungry. Chin-mo got up and said, "The food is ready. Go take a shower and we'll start eating." Hee-hwan nodded. She felt very uncomfortable and wanted to take a bath, but she was probably too weak. After soaking in the bathtub for about 10 minutes, her legs actually turned to jelly and she couldn't climb out for a long time. She could only call Chin-mo. When Chin-mo entered, he was a little surprised. Then, he looked at the person in the bathtub. His eyes were burning, and there was a hint of plundering in them. She was afraid of his gaze. After a while, she said, "Help me. Let me carry you." He probably knew that she couldn't move, so he directly reached out to hold her, bent over, and carried her straight to the master bedroom. Hee-hwan instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. She was also a little nervous and afraid. Chin-mo didn't do anything to her. He put her on the bed and his voice and body were tense. "I'll go get clothes for you." However, his gaze didn't immediately move away. Instead, he kept staring at her, and his Adam's apple kept moving. Her body wasn't particularly perfect. It was a little too thin, but he had had it many times and was very satisfied with and liked her body. He couldn't move his gaze away. Hee-hwan covered herself with the bed sheet and said in a small voice, "Go get clothes." She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature, talking about life and looking for bosom friends. Chapter 42:16. Chin-mo's gaze was still on her body. Although it was mostly blocked, he could still see her delicate shoulders. His eyes darkened, and after a long time, he said hoarsely, "Okay." After he went to the changing room, Hee-hwan was still hugging the bedsheets, and her body was trembling slightly. If one were to ask her what she felt just now, it would be fear and terror. In her heart, she couldn't quite get through that night. As she was thinking about it, Chin-mo came over with a set of home clothes in his hand, which she used to wear. He stood by the bed and asked in a low voice, "Can you still wear it?" Hee-hwan silently took the clothes over. "You go out first." Chin-mo turned around and walked out gracefully, and even helped her close the door gently. Only then did Hee-hwan crawl out of the quilt and force herself to put on the clothes. When her feet landed on the ground, she felt weak. She never knew that her body was so bad. When she went out to the dining room, she only saw that Chin-mo was there, but Hee-hwan wasn't. Hee-hwan sat on the dining chair and looked at Chin-mo. "Where's Hee-hwan?" "Auntie coaxed her to sleep," he said faintly, and then scooped a bowl of soup for her. "Have a bowl to nourish yourself first." Hee-hwan drank a mouthful of soup silently, and suddenly looked up at him. Chin-mo was also drinking soup silently. Seeing that she was looking at him, he smiled faintly. "Why are you looking at me?" Hee-hwan said very slowly, "Chin-mo, it's better for us to keep a distance. Without Hee-hwan around, it's better for us to keep a distance." Chin-mo looked down. When she couldn't see him, his eyes were cold, but his voice was still very faint. I don't think I did anything impolite to you, or do you think that I should turn a blind eye to your illness and leave you to die, so that I can keep a distance? He had always been eloquent, and he was a strong person, so Juan didn't want to continue talking to him. She just quietly drank the bowl of soup, but she ate very little. Mo didn't force her. Otherwise, people would say that he didn't keep his distance from her. The meal passed in silence. After eating, she wanted to return to her room, but Mo said softly, "Tonight, Juan will sleep by yourself. If you sleep in the master bedroom, I will sleep in the guest room. I might come over to check your temperature at night. Don't turn off the lights, or you'll scream in the middle of the night." Juan didn't say anything and returned to the master bedroom. Being sick was always very uncomfortable. She lay on the bed, unable to fall asleep, but unable to get up, so she simply picked up the script and read it. As she read, she became more and more immersed in it. Even when Mo came in, she did not notice. At a glance, Mo saw that it was the script for Twin. It was written by her beautiful face. She snorted softly. "Take your temperature." Juan froze for a moment and put down the script in her hands. "You're going to start measuring again so soon?" Mo looked at her and said, "The doctor told me." She didn't say anything else and silently reached out her hand. Mo put the thermometer on her palm. Juan put it away and took it out after about 3 minutes. Mo looked at it and said, 38 degrees. "Take another pill at midnight." Juan hurriedly said, "I'll take it by myself." "You can put the medicine on the bedside table." Mo stood there and quietly looked at her. "You used to say the same thing, but you never remembered to take it." In the past, he mentioned the past again. Juan didn't say anything and leaned against the bedside table to read the script. "I'll read it when you're well." Mo directly went over and took the script from her hand. "Now lie down and rest." Juan bit her lip. "Mo, can you not be so overbearing? I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talking about life and looking for bosom friends, recommending the urban guru Shirshinshu." Chapter 42:17. If you weren't sick and obedient, I wouldn't be so overbearing. He stared at her and said in a deep voice, "You're not only my ex-wife, but also Juan's mother." Ex-wife? Juan was dazed for a moment and thought bitterly. She was his ex-wife, so he was her ex-husband too. What he meant was that he did all this for Juan. Obviously, she was thinking too much, so she pulled up the bed sheets. "Then wake me up at 12. Mo stared at her for a few seconds and walked out without saying anything. Juan thought that she couldn't fall asleep because she was a little angry, but as she lay down, she felt sleepy and her bones hurt. She really fell asleep. At midnight, Mo came on time. The bedroom was dark. He didn't wake her up immediately. Instead, he sat by the bed and reached out to feel the temperature. It hadn't gone down yet. He looked at her quietly for a while before taking the pill and helping her up. "Juan, take your medicine." She woke up in a daze, but she wasn't fully awake. She opened her eyes and looked at him as if she was dreaming. After a while, she closed her eyes again. "I'll take it." He put a pill into her mouth and then fed her water. Juan had been obedient, probably because she was too tired. After feeding her the medicine, there was no reason to hold her anymore, even if she was unconscious. Mo laid her down and sat by the side to watch her quietly. After watching for a long time, he felt even more bitter in his heart. Then, he got up and walked to the French window in the living room. That night, he didn't sleep. He smoked and had red wine in his hand. Other than socializing, Chin Mo almost never touched alcohol. But tonight, he wanted to indulge himself. Juan was with him, but she didn't belong to him anymore. It was only when she was asleep that she wouldn't guard against him and wouldn't look at him with that kind of gaze. In her heart, he was a violent man, a rapist, and a criminal. If it weren't for the friendship between the two families, they would have been broken and broken. In fact, they weren't any better now. Their relationship was broken and full of holes. Chin Mo let out a long breath, drank the last glass of wine, and went to the master bedroom to check on Juan. Her temperature finally dropped. He was a little relieved. When he was about to get up and leave, Juan woke up. Her eyes narrowed, and then she looked around. Probably finding it safe, she said in a hoarse voice, "Is it dawn?" "Not yet, it's only 5. Sleep a little more." His voice was even more hoarse than hers. Juan bit her lip and tilted her head to look at the dark night outside. Then, she thought of something and frowned. "Chin Mo, did you smoke and drink?" He smelled of cigarettes and alcohol. It wasn't bad, but it couldn't be ignored. Chin Mo was about to leave, but he paused. He looked down at her and said in a raspy voice, "Why? Do you still care about me?" "Of course not." She pursed her lips and closed her eyes. "Go rest. I'll sleep a little more." It was obvious that she didn't want to talk, and for some reason, she angered Chin Mo. The next second, Juan's hand was caught, and he said hoarsely, "Don't you want to know why I smoke and drink?" Juan said ruthlessly, "Not really." "Yeah, because we're divorced." He stared at her face, and his eyes seemed to be on fire. "I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talk about life and find a confidant. Recommend the urban guru Shinshu." Chapter 42:18. That was how they were. The more indifferent she was, the angrier he was. Because she didn't care about him. Chin Mo grabbed her wrist and squinted. "You don't want to know even if we don't divorce, do you? You only care about what Rongyu thinks, don't you?" Juan opened her eyes. "Chin Mo, you've drunk too much." "I'm not drunk." He held her hand and moved closer to her. In the end, his lips, which smelled of tobacco and alcohol, touched hers gently. "I've always been sober, but I've never been so sober." She was a little afraid of him. Juan licked her lower lip and stared at him warily. "I want to rest." "You're running away." He stared at her. "Am I making you afraid?" "Juan, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid that I'll hit you or rape you?" As he spoke, he pinched her sharp chin and twisted it gently. As for Juan, the memories of that night resurfaced in front of her eyes. She clearly remembered how he had strangled her neck, how he had slapped her crazily, and how he had treated her rudely. Even as he had been rough with her, he had leaned against her neck and used an incredibly gentle tone to tell her that he loved her. He didn't love her. If he loved her, he wouldn't have done that. If he loved her, he wouldn't have betrayed her in their marriage. The familiar suffocation began again. Juan's pupils dilated, and she grabbed the bed sheets so hard that her fingers turned white. She was very afraid, but she couldn't say it out loud. She just lay under him helplessly. At this moment, Juan was very weak. However, Chin Mo didn't notice it. He moved his lips to kiss her. He wasn't rough. On the contrary, he was very gentle. However, Juan was extremely afraid. She lay motionless, feeling the warmth of his lips, his breath, and his strength. All of this made her afraid and terrified. She was about to suffocate, but she forgot how to breathe. Her whole body was stiff. Chi-Nemo looked down and pressed his lips against hers. "Do you hate me so much?" He didn't continue. He left her lips and let go of her. When Yi-Huan regained her freedom, she instinctively slapped Chi-Nemo. With a crack, the air froze into ice. Chi-Nemo's face, which had been slapped to the side, slowly turned back and looked at Yi-Huan quietly. Yi-Huan's breathing was very chaotic. He was like a small fish on the verge of death, desperately breathing. The corners of her eyes were filled with tears. He was originally furious, but when he saw those tears, he realized that she was just scared and terrified. He woke up from his drunkenness and realized what he had done to her. He lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "Sorry, I drank too much." Yi-Huan didn't look at him again. She turned her body stiffly and hugged the blanket tightly with her fingers. She spat out a hoarse word, "Get lost." At this moment, it was as if they had returned to that dark night. She was afraid, and he was helpless. Chi-Nemo took a step back, apologized again, and walked out. He leaned against the door. His body was exhausted, but he was unwilling to leave. He heard Yi-Huan's suppressed crying. Her crying made his heart ache. The hope that had risen in his heart seemed to be shattered again. Actually, after he had done that to her and asked for a divorce, everything had been his own sweet dream. How could Yi-Huan still want him? Chi-Nemo had forgotten how he had been willing to let go. He loved her and couldn't let go. "I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talk about life and find a confidant. Recommend the urban guru Shinshu." Chapter 42:19. Things had always been a little ugly between them. And now, he was using Yi-Huan to get close to Yi-Huan. Yi-Huan might not have understood that she cared about Yi-Huan, but Su Qing wasn't someone who could be easily dismissed. Yi-Huan was her daughter, even though she doted on Yi-Huan. However, their relationship was different. Yi-Huan had so many people doting on her, but Yi-Huan only had their parents. Su Qing came to visit Yi-Huan and was surprised to find that Yi-Huan was sick as well. She felt helpless and angry at the same time. Coincidentally, Chi-Mo had gone to work, so Su Qing lowered her voice and asked, "Why are you with him again? Didn't Mom tell you last time to take care of him and visit him when you're free? Why are you living with him in such an ambiguous manner?" Yi-Huan was still a little weak. Coupled with what happened in the morning, she looked a little dazed. She lowered her eyes and told him what had happened. Su Qing snorted coldly, "You can't trust Qinchin's words. How can you be so stupid?" She reached out and placed her finger on her daughter's forehead. Yi-Huan bit her lip and said softly, "Mom, even if Yi-Huan isn't sick, she must have sensed it and threw a tantrum. I can't bear to part with her." Su Qing was a little disappointed. "Look, you fell into Qin-Mo's trap. He was clearly in the wrong back then. He even used underhanded means to get you pregnant and give birth to Yi-Huan. He just wanted to tie you down. Look, you guys can't even get a clear divorce. In the future, how are you going to talk about the future?" Yi-Huan looked troubled. "Mom, I'm not in a hurry." "I am." Su Qing rolled her eyes. "How can I not be in a hurry when she's over 30? It was Chi-Mo before that. Do you know how difficult it is to find a suitable one?" Yi-Huan sighed. "Let nature take its course." However, Su Qing couldn't say no. She thought about it carefully and said, "You can't miss someone you're already dating. I've already made an appointment for you. It's tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It won't take up much time for both of you to have dinner together. Aren't you going to film later? You don't have time. Huan still wanted to refute, but Su Qing waved her hand. I know what you want to say. But Huan, let me tell you, you will only be taken advantage of by Qin Mo. If he lets you go, it's all bullshit. Look, you're sleeping in his bed and living in his place. What kind of divorce is this? If this gets out, will you still be able to marry? Huan's lips moved as she whispered, we slept separately. He can't sleep separately either. He has only endured it for a month or two now. If it were half a year or a year, would he be able to endure it? Su Cheng's tone was a little strange. There is no Liu Xiahui in the Qin family. Hearing this, even Huan couldn't help but laugh. Mom, how did you know? Su Cheng's old face turned red. Don't ask. Of course I know. Don't be late tomorrow at 6:00. The location is Yunzhong Restaurant. You know it too. Huan's lips moved, but she finally gave in. Su Qing didn't stay for long. Instead, she took Huan out to play. She said that it was for her daughter's happiness and that she doted on her granddaughter a lot. Huan lay in bed for a long time and didn't eat at noon. Unexpectedly, Qin Mo came back in the afternoon. At about 3:00, when he came back, the housekeeper said, Madam doesn't want to eat at noon. I can't do anything about it. Qin Mo didn't correct her. He just took off his coat, threw it on the sofa, and sat down. Has anyone been here? I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talking about life and looking for bosom friends, recommending the urban guru Shirshinshu. Chapter 42:20. The aunt quickly said, Oh, it's like this. Madam's mother came over and talked for a while. Then, she took Huan out. Madam didn't look very happy after that. Qin Mo's eyes darkened a little. He paused and asked, Did Huan have a fever again today? The aunt smiled. Sir, you took good care of her for the whole day. She's completely recovered today. She's in good spirits. Qin Mo didn't say anything more. He got up and went to the master bedroom. Huan didn't sleep. She leaned on the sofa and read the script. Because it was evening, she turned on the reading lamp. It was dusk outside, and the room was dyed a little dreamy by the dim yellow light. Qin Mo's heart softened a little. He looked at her. She was wearing thick home clothes. Because she had just been sick yesterday, she looked a little fragile. She wasn't as fierce as she usually was. Qin Mo went over and took the script from her hand. You've just recovered and you're busy reading this. This script was the fuse of their divorce. So, he always had a headache every time he saw it. Huan snatched it from his hand and glanced at him. The shooting starts next week. I'm not even familiar with the script. How do you expect me to shoot it? Qin Mo sat down and stared at her for a while. Haven't you read it many times? I thought you could recite it backwards. Qin Mo, can you not be so harsh with your words? She said a little impatiently. Qin Mo reached out and pulled her hair. I took care of you yesterday. Today, you're turning against me. Huan turned her face away angrily and slapped his hand away. Not only do I turn against you, but I also know how to slap people. Her words made Qin Mo lose his temper. He wanted to get up and ask her to eat. Suddenly, he thought of something. What did Mom say to you today? She said that you were unhappy the whole day. Huan leaned on the sofa. You should call me Mom. Qin Mo thought about it. But you still call me Mom, right? I did that in front of Yi Huan. Yi Huan was speechless. He tugged at her hair. Me too. It won't be good if we get exposed in the future. After all, it's scary to get used to this kind of thing. What do you think? Yi Huan didn't want to talk to him. She stood up and said, I want to eat. He reached out and pulled her to sit down again. She was still sitting close to him. Yi Huan was a little angry. Qin Mo, what else do you want? What did your mother say to you? He stared into her eyes and suddenly reached out to touch her eyes. You cried, didn't you? Yi Huan turned his head and said bitterly, it's none of your business. Qin Mo pinched her chin and used a gentle force to force her to look at him. He asked softly, she asked you to go on a blind date, right? Yi Huan's pupils dilated slightly. After a while, he said in a hoarse voice, it's none of your business. Qin Mo was still staring at her eyes. He knew that he had guessed correctly. Her mother had asked her to go on a blind date. He let go of her and said with difficulty, don't you have Rongyu? Why do you still want to go on a blind date? Yi Huan fell on the sofa and hugged herself. After a long time, she asked softly, Qin Mo, is it because of Rongyu? No, it's because of you. She smiled gently. Because when we got married, you found out that the person I wanted to marry wasn't you, so you always suspected me. You felt that something was wrong when I bought Rongyu's script. You also felt that something was wrong when I happened to bump into him for a cup of coffee. You always wanted to divorce because you couldn't stand it. It had nothing to do with Rongyu or anyone else. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talk about life and find a confidant. Recommend the urban guru Shirshinshu. Chapter 42-21. After Yi Huan said that, she felt much better. Perhaps she had wanted to say it a long time ago. Everything between them was actually broken by Qin Mo. Rongyu's existence in this world was like that woman's existence. They could not let them disappear. As for Qin Mo, he wanted to control her thoughts and everything about her. If she was unwilling, he would destroy her. At least, that was their marriage. Yi Huan crossed her arms and said in a low voice, I used to think that I was the one enduring this marriage. But last night, what you did and said told me that you were also enduring. Before this, I always thought that you loved me very much, even if there were some accidents. Qin Mo's eyes were as deep as water. You realize that I'm enduring it, so you don't have to endure it anymore, right? Yi Huan's voice was weak. We are not good parents. Qin Mo, I can cooperate with you if you want to give Yi Huan a complete childhood, but other things, she looked into his eyes and said softly but firmly, other things. Since you've given up, don't think about taking possession of her anymore. You said that you won't regret it. She was not a hesitant person, but she had hesitated about this marriage for a long time. She had never thought that it would be Qin Mo who asked for a divorce. Since it was a divorce, she would not hesitate anymore. They should not be intimate anymore, or she would look down on herself. After she said that, Qin Mo did not say anything else. He just smiled and said, let's eat. He got up and walked out, his back view a little stiff. Yi Huan composed herself and went out as well. The auntie avoided her and went out. While eating, Yi Huan said quietly, I'll go back to my apartment tomorrow. Just tell Yi Huan that I have a job and I'll come back a few days later when I have to leave. Qin Mo clenched his fists. No need, I'll send her to my parents' place tomorrow. Yi Huan's expression was a little awkward. After a while, she said in a low voice, Qin Mo. You're leaving tomorrow, and she'll be taken care of by the auntie here. Why don't you go to my parents' place? His tone was calm, but he was angry. Huan didn't know why he was angry. She lowered her eyes and continued eating without saying anything. The atmosphere was stiff to the extreme. Fortunately, Su Qing sent Huan back. As soon as the little fellow came back, the house became much livelier. Huan was a soft little person. Su Qing loved Huan very much, but she didn't treat Qin Mo well. Any mother wouldn't treat a man who had beaten her daughter well, and Su Qing was no exception. She left after a while and had zero interaction with Qin Mo. Qin Mo didn't like Su Qing because of what had happened before, so he only saw Su Qing off when she left. Outside the door, Su Qing said straightforwardly, "Qin Mo, you must have guessed that I asked Huan to go on a blind date. I know your character, so I'm saying this here. I hope you won't destroy Huan's future happiness, and don't use Huan to tie her down. It's not that I'm dissatisfied with you. To be honest, you've done a good job in the past few years, but if you're really not suitable for each other, you can divorce. Violence is the last thing you should do. I'm a mother, so of course I'll feel sorry for her, just like how Huan feels sorry for Huan. Please understand a mother's heart and don't use Huan to block everything." She said so, and Qin Mo didn't even have a word to say. "I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talk about life, find a bosom friend. Recommend the urban guru Shinshu." Chapter 42-22. He had no position in front of Su Qing. What he had done was done. It would be a dark history for the rest of his life. Qin Mo paused for a moment and said softly, "Mom, I'll remember that." Su Qing had wanted him not to call her mom, but she had watched Qin Mo grow up. She felt that it would be too heartless to say it, so she did not say it out loud. "Don't forget what you said." She was about to leave when Qin Mo stopped her. "Mom." Su Qing paused. Qin Mo said in a low voice, "I really like Huan. I've never liked anyone else but her." Su Qing's heart softened. She thought for a moment and said, "Huan told me that she liked you." "Qin Mo, maybe it's because your personalities don't match. Both of you are very strong-willed, so you missed each other. It's good for you to be apart. Besides," she lowered her voice, "you should have noticed that Huan is afraid of you. Your Uncle Kaim asked you if you'd regret it, and he told you that if you did, we wouldn't agree to it. It's only been a few days, and now that you're talking to me like this, I feel that you're treating marriage and relationships as child's play. Huan is a little willful, but she gave birth to your children all these years. Even though she's always been outside, she wouldn't do anything to hurt Huan. She cooperated with everything you did, even with your flowers and plants outside. Qin Mo, don't you say that cheating is only considered cheating when there's evidence. A man who makes a woman feel insecure isn't a good husband or a good man." Su Qing gave him a deep look after saying that. "Think about it yourself." She left. Qin Mo did not go back immediately. Instead, he smoked a few cigarettes. As he puffed out the smoke, he asked himself if he regretted it. He couldn't say for sure. If he said that he didn't regret it, it seemed a little. If he said that he regretted it, he had no intention of remarrying Huan. Maybe he really wasn't a good husband. When he returned, the auntie had just finished tidying up. "Sir, I'll go back first." Qin Mo nodded. The auntie opened the door and went out. Qin Mo watched the door close before he walked inside. Huan and Huan were not in the living room. When he walked to the corridor, he heard the sound of running water. It was probably coming from the bathroom, and it was the children's suite. Chi Nemo walked in without hesitation. When he went in, he saw Yi Huan taking a bath. In the little pink bathtub, the little fellow was lying happily. Yi Huan was carefully and gently taking care of her. She took a shower ball and squeezed some strawberry-flavored shower gel into it. She gently rubbed the shower gel on Yi Huan's little arms, calves, and belly. There were bubbles everywhere. Little Yi Huan blew on the bubbles happily, and her little face was filled with satisfaction. For some reason, this scene hit Qin Mo's heart. He had a feeling that Yi Huan was making it up to Yi Huan for the days when she was not around. He felt a little upset. He slowly walked over, squatted down beside Yi Huan, and touched the little fellow's little feet with his hand. Yi Huan was ticklish. She giggled. "Daddy is bad." Qin Mo smiled. "What about Mommy?" "Hello, Mommy." Yi Huan even leaned over to kiss Yi Huan. She was quite biased. Qin Mo smiled and did not say anything. He just tilted his head to look at Yi Huan. Yi Huan was still helping little Yi Huan bathe. Although her movements were still a little rusty, she tried her best to do it. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature, talking about life and looking for bosom friends. Chapter 42-23. Qin Mo suddenly said, "In fact, you can also be a good mother." Yi Huan glanced at him and didn't say anything. Little Yi Huan immediately said, "I want to be a good father." Her voice was crisp. After saying that, her eyes fell on Qin Mo eagerly, for fear that he would abandon her. Qin Mo and Yi Huan looked at each other and found that Yi Huan's emotions were still very sensitive. The little fellow noticed Qin Mo's careless words, so they were a little worried. Yi Huan pinched little Yi Huan's nose, carried her up with a bath towel, and went back to the bedroom to help the little girl dry her hair, change her clothes, and make her smell good. Finally, she put her in Qin Mo's arms and said, "She's yours tonight." Yi Huan hugged her father's neck and looked at her mother greedily. "I want to be a good mother." Qin Mo patted her little butt and asked, "Who taught you that?" "Grandpa taught me." Little Yi Huan immediately betrayed Qin Anlin, completely. Qin Mo and Yi Huan were a little uncomfortable. They looked at each other and Yi Huan said, "I'm going to take a bath." Qin Mo took the little fellow back to the master bedroom with one hand. Yi Huan played for a day, but she was still very energetic and kept talking to Qin Mo. Qin Mo turned sideways and coaxed her lazily. He even took a fairy tale book to read to the little girl. Yi Huan came over and saw that Yi Huan was very sleepy, but she was still supporting her little head with her hands and trying hard to support herself. She couldn't help but smile and whispered, "I'll coax her. You go to the guest room to rest." Qin Mo glanced at her and didn't object. Instead, when he got up, he inadvertently pinched Yi Huan's calf. Yi Huan woke up at once and stretched out her fat little arms to hook her father's neck. "Dad." Her eyelids closed again, but she refused to let go. Qin Mo smiled lightly. "You're so clingy." Yi Huan thought for a moment. "I'll sleep in the guest room." Qin Mo stopped her. "I haven't taken a bath yet. You coax her to sleep and I'll take a bath." Yi Huan had no way to refuse. She could only lie down and take Yi Huan into her arms. Yi Huan smelled the scent on her body and moved closer, wanting to eat there. Yi Huan felt a little uncomfortable, so she pulled up the quilt and let her do as she pleased. Qin Mo reached out and rubbed Yi Huan's little head. "You're so big now." Yi Huan actually became a little more clear-headed. She said in a half-asleep and half-awake manner, "Daddy is also very old, and he still wants to eat. I want to eat too." For a moment, the atmosphere between the two adults was very subtle. Both of them were divorced, but a child's words actually evoked memories of those hot nights in the past. Not only Qin Mo, but He Huan's body also felt a little hot. You go to sleep in, she put her back, Shi Mo, and Xiao at Huan tea after tea. Qin Mo didn't say anything and got up to take a bath. He didn't sleep on the same bed as her, but Yi Huan's words had aroused his desire. How could he let it go now? He tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. He opened his eyes and thought of all the things he had done with Yi Huan. When he closed his eyes, he thought of the night they got married. No matter how he thought about it, it was all pain. It was either mental torture or physical pain. But now, she was afraid when he touched her. Their relationship was hidden under the calmness. Qin Mo tossed and turned. At 2:00, he went to the living room, thinking that a glass of red wine might help him sleep. He went out and turned on the lights. He didn't expect Yi Huan to get up too. She was drinking water. She was wearing silk pajamas, which she must have changed. She wouldn't wear such a style usually because it was too feminine. He didn't know why she was wearing it now. The lights were on. When Yi Huan turned her head, she also noticed the abnormal rise and fall of Qin Mo's bathrobe. Her face heated up. "I'm going to sleep." She put down the glass and walked past him. A strong arm grabbed her and said in a hoarse voice, "Why did you change? I haven't seen you wear this before." The white strapless pajamas clung to her body, making her look beautiful and sexy. At night, Yi Huan was very different. She was like a demon that stole his breath. Qin Mo felt that his body was hurting even more. It was an indescribable feeling. He wanted to talk about new wife number 1, hubby, addicted to pampering, with more like-minded people. He followed Yudu literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a confidant. Chapter 42-24. Qin Mo reached out and grabbed her. With a gentle pull, Yi Huan sat on his lap. Suddenly, her body stiffened. She put her hands on his shoulders and wanted to stand up, but Qin Mo didn't let her. His voice was hoarse and low. "Sit with me for a while." He took a glass of red wine and handed it to her. "Have a drink. Just treat it as accompanying me." He didn't make things difficult for her. He let go of her, sat on the other side, and poured himself a glass of wine. Yi Huan actually had something to say to him. She didn't refuse and sat on the other side of the sofa. She put her feet on the sofa and took a sip of red wine. Then she said in a low voice, "It's not possible for us to live together for a long time. I want to bring Yi Huan to live with me sometimes." Qin Mo looked at her quietly. Yi Huan continued, "Qin Mo, you know what I'm talking about." Qin Mo looked at her with a mysterious expression. "You want Yi Huan to call someone else daddy? If you really want to go on a blind date." Yi Huan didn't deny it anymore. She said in a low voice, "I won't get married." Then she said, "You know about my mom. Qin Mo, please understand other people's difficulties." As she spoke, she stopped and tilted her head back to drink half a glass of red wine. After drinking it, her cheeks were a little red and her eyes were a little mellow. Yi Huan had never been so beautiful in front of him. She always kept a distance. At this moment, it was probably because she was drunk or because she was wearing sexy pajamas. If he didn't know her well, he would think that his ex-wife was seducing him. But that wasn't the case. She probably just couldn't find pajamas, so she drew this one. She had never liked to have a relationship with him, not to mention that she hated him now. Qin Mo looked at her silently and said softly, "He Huan, is it hard to love me?" He Huan was stunned and said instinctively, "Qin Mo, you drank too much." She wanted to leave again, but his voice was low and strong. "Don't go." When she spoke again, she seemed a little fragile. "Talk to me for a while." He Huan knew that she couldn't leave if he didn't let her, so she didn't leave. Thus, he went over and poured himself a glass of wine, sipping it slowly. Qin Mo just looked at her and didn't say anything. He Huan looked down. "What do you think about what I told you?" Yi Huan. His body relaxed on the sofa. Under the dim light, even though he was only wearing a bathrobe, he still looked attractive. Qin Mo was in his 30s, which was the most mature and charming period of a man's life. He looked at He Huan and smiled faintly. "If we don't get married, there's no need to let Yi Huan know that we're divorced, right?" His words were actually a little cunning, and He Huan didn't want to talk to him. She was still taking small sips of the red wine and did not look at him. After drinking another cup, she said, "I'm going to bed. You should sleep early too." He Huan, he called her name and then reached out to pull her onto his lap. This time, he didn't let her go. He bit her neck directly. He Huan was shocked, and her voice was hoarse. "Qin Mo." Qin Mo's voice was particularly hoarse. "I really want to bite you to death." Of course, he couldn't really bite her to death. He just bit her neck hard, leaving 2 suspicious bite marks at the junction of her chin and neck. "I made you go on a blind date with someone else. I made you dress like this to seduce me. I made you want to leave me. I made you dislike me. I wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talking about life and looking for confidants." Chapter 42-25. Qin Mo's heart was filled with all sorts of indignation, and all of it was vented in this bite. He Huan's body was stiff. He didn't let go of her immediately. He was still holding her waist and his voice was hoarse. "Are you afraid of me?" He Huan was indeed afraid of him. She was only in her pajamas, and her chin was forced to rest on his shoulder. She could feel Qin Mo's urgency. However, he didn't do much. He just held her waist and closed his eyes to calm himself down. His face was tense because of Yuang, as if it had been carved by a knife. She didn't dare to move for fear of touching him. After a long time, Qin Mo finally let go of her. His tense face relaxed, and the icy flames in his eyes disappeared. He said hoarsely, "Go to sleep." He Huan left as if she was escaping. She didn't expect him to let her go, but when she reached the bathroom in the bedroom, she found 2 deep hickeys on her neck. No, they were bite marks. She touched it lightly, and it still hurt a little. He Huan was furious. She held the sink and cursed, "This pervert. He definitely did it on purpose." He Huan immediately thought of the blind date tomorrow. It would definitely be a fake, but she would be scolded by her mother. Moreover, they would definitely suspect whether she and Qin Mo had slept together. With this thing here, anyone who saw it would think that they had done it. He Huan was very angry, but she was really tired in the middle of the night. She simply put on some medicine and went to sleep. The next morning, she ran to the bathroom to check her neck. She was furious again. The hickeys were still there, and they didn't fade at all. She took a powder puff and tried to wipe it a few times, but she couldn't stop it. She heard a soft laugh. She turned her head and saw that it was Qin Mo. He was dressed neatly in a classic black and white suit and looked very handsome. Hee-hwan glared at him. Chi-nemo didn't care. He put his hands in front of him and said elegantly, "Are you going on a blind date today?" Hee-hwan snorted. "It's none of your business." "It's none of my business, but I can take care of Hee-hwan for you, lest she spoils your plans." He smiled faintly, but there was no smile in his eyes. In Hee-hwan's eyes, it was a fake smile. Hee-hwan stared at him. Chi-nemo smiled again. "What's wrong? Are you unhappy that I'm magnanimous?" Hee-hwan took a toothbrush and squeezed some toothpaste out of it. "When you're so generous, I feel like you're up to something." "Is that so?" "You don't understand me." He shrugged and turned to leave. After a while, he paused as if he remembered something and said, "Oh right, the pajamas you wore last night were very nice." Hee-hwan furiously brushed his teeth and glared at him. Chi-nemo chuckled and left. He then spoke again, "You're doing it at night, right?" "I have an appointment with someone." "Hee-hwan will be with my parents." Hee-hwan ignored him and furiously brushed her teeth. She dealt with some things during the day. Because the filming was about to start, there were a lot of things to deal with. She had been busy with her divorce and taking care of Hee-hwan recently. Instead, Kong Chiao helped her with a lot of things, which she was very grateful for. She was busy in the studio until 4 in the afternoon. When she was about to leave after stretching her neck, her assistant came in and said that a Mr. Rong was looking for her. Hee-hwan hesitated for a moment. "Let him in." It was Rong-yu. When Rong-yu walked in, Hee-hwan had already changed her expression into one of high spirits. She greeted him lightly. "You're here." Chapter 42-26. She took out a notebook. "This is the second payment. There shouldn't be any problems with the script modification, right?" Rong-yu stared at her for a while and handed her a notebook. Hee-hwan flipped through it and looked up. "It's pretty good." She found a check for 1 million yuan. Rong-yu's script cost 4 million yuan. 2 million for the early stage, 1 million for the revised script, and another million for the middle of filming. Rong-yu didn't say anything. Hee-hwan handed him the check and he took it quietly. "Thank you. It's the normal fee." Hee-hwan smiled. "I heard that many companies are begging for your script. The price has already reached 10 million yuan. Congratulations." Rong-yu didn't care much about fame and fortune, but he wasn't completely ignorant. He smiled and said, "Hee-hwan, because you picked my script, I was able to rise to the top. So, thank you." Hee-hwan let out a long sigh and hesitated for a while. "Rong-yu, your talent can be bought with money, but I always hope that you will consider when choosing a partner. It will be beneficial for your future development. Don't become a tool for others to make money. There's no way out in this industry without a good reputation." Rong-yu smiled. "I know." Hee-hwan gestured for him to drink some tea. They chatted casually for a while and then looked at the time. Rong-yu looked at her. "Are you in a hurry?" Hee-hwan smiled. "I have some personal matters to deal with." Rong-yu looked down and whispered. "I heard that you and Chi-nemo got divorced. Is that true?" Hee-hwan was startled. After a long time, she sighed softly, "Rong-yu, this has nothing to do with you, really." He looked up at her, and there was something like a spark in his eyes. He hesitated for a while and then said, "Do I still have a chance?" He said it so bluntly that Hee-hwan couldn't avoid it. She thought for a while and said softly, "Rong-yu, we can only be old friends. We might be good friends, but she seemed to chuckle softly. Do you know, you and Chin Mo look a little alike. I married him in the past because he looked like you, but now, it's impossible between us because you look a little like him. Rong-yu listened carefully to her words, and his expression turned ugly. What she said could not be clearer. In the past, Chin Mo was his shadow, and now he was Chin Mo's shadow. She fell in love with Chin Mo. Why? He asked her persistently, why did you like her and then divorce her? He Huan smiled. We used to like each other, but we didn't get together. As for why, she couldn't explain it. It seemed like it was because of the violence that night, but she knew it wasn't. She and Chin Mo had been torturing each other for a long time. They were like two parallel lines that had walked further and further away from each other. They did not want to feel any more pain and wanted to protect themselves. That was all. Instinctively no longer love, instinctively selfish, that was it. After He Huan finished speaking, she smiled faintly. However, Rong-yu could see a hint of regret in her eyes. He understood that she might have fallen in love with Chin Mo. Rong-yu did not expose her. He stood up and said in a low voice, I'll leave first. I still have a dinner tonight. He wanted to say something, but he swallowed his words and did not say anything. When they parted, both of them were silent. There was something that they couldn't say. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.